I'm gonna separate my coverage of World of Remnant from the review of the series. Mostly because the things said in these videos are about as far removed from the things in the series as, well, other things in the series are. Why is Jen Taylor cursed? First she has to act opposite Steve Downes for 4 games, and now she has to read the most useless part of a series that's already poorly written.
By definition, it is a naturally occurring energy propellant.
So dust is energy propellant. Great, we already knew that. It's like the first thing Blake says.
One of the largest producers of energy propellant in the world.
And we can tell it's naturally occurring from the fact that it can be mined.
This is dust, mined and purified from the Schnee Quarry.
Dust can be combined, both artificially and naturally, to form new, stronger types.
And yet this never comes up in the series. All throughout the series, we only ever see fire, ice, and rock. We never even see this green comma in use, which I assume is supposed to be air. The series hasn't even established the 4 basic types yet, but they insist that they can be combined to make new, stronger types. And then it gets worse when they start talking about how using raw dust requires discipline.
Some prefer to use dust in its raw form. Those who choose to wield dust in this state must possess a certain level of discipline.
Yeah, chucking a crystal and then shooting it. That's extremely reserved. Oh, and Weiss shaking an open container in the middle of the quad? Great demonstration of discipline. And then you see the guy who's the most disciplined out of any of them, and he's using dust bullets to fight.
We wanted to be able to show Ren was loading Schnee dust rounds into his weapons there, but eh.
And that's supposed to be the method used by the undisciplined soldiers.
Warriors need simply choose the right cartridge for the job and pull the trigger.
And then the last line in this dump...
Their involvement with dust will ultimately change the world of Remnant.
Doesn't make any sense next to this line.
Dust has made its way into practically every facet of technology.
Oh really? The thing that served as the catalyst for every single invention in human history might change the world? What was the point of that line? Are they reminding us of what we heard 80 seconds ago? Do they expect us to believe that all of the inventions that they've mentioned in the last minute of the video haven't changed the world? This whole video is basically just a retread of the voiceover opening for the series.
The tools that would help even the odds, named dust.
And if you thought it couldn't get any worse from there, the Kingdoms of Remnant Exposition dump is either the funniest or most depressing thing you will ever hear, depending on how invested you are in the future of the human race. But I better take this opportunity to do equal parts giving credit where it's due and calling out retardation. There was some very well delivered exposition about the lore of the 4 kingdoms peppered throughout Volume 2. Exposition that would allow you to figure out from context things like, Vacuo is the most tolerant to faunus.
I hear you're planning on leaving. Moving all the way to Vacuo.
It's located in a desert.
You're playing as Vacuo. You've got Sandstorm, Desert Scavenge.
Its culture is very informal,
But I grew up in Vacuo. It's not exactly a shirt and tie kind of place.
with an economy composed of scavengers.
Oh, Resourceful Raider.
It has a navy.
You attacked your own naval fleet 2 turns ago.
Atlas is militaristic,
The small fleet outside my window has me somewhat concerned.
with a mechanically oriented education system,
My repair time only lasts 1 turn.
with an air force,
I deploy the Elysian Air Fleet!
and they're war profiteers,
And admittedly, a little less scary.
and a robot army. Minstrel is rich from trade. Treacherous,
Trap card.
Huh?
and obviously have some way of controlling Grimm to fight for them.
Fly right over your Ursite. Giant Nevermore!
And that everyone in Vale is racist as fuck, with an incompetent police force and an even more incompetent sect of huntsmen and huntresses who can't even stop one lousy criminal who can't even hold his own in a fight with a teenage girl. But the way they go about describing the 4 kingdoms in this video is one of the most retarded things I've ever heard. Take for instance this line.
Each kingdom has a governing council.
Let that sink in for a second. I am legitimately saddened by the fact that Jen Taylor had to say that. Whoever wrote this doesn't understand that a kingdom is ruled by a king, and a republic is governed by a council. Those are the polar opposites on the spectrum of government. There have been multiple wars fought over that very distinction. And the next line about military proves that on top of not knowing what a monarchy is, whoever wrote this also doesn't know how to count to 4.
While most kingdoms only call on its citizens to serve, others find it important to be prepared.
Most kingdoms and others were referenced in that one line. Okay, tricky math coming up, but most of 4 is 3. If it were any less than 3, it would be half of 4, 1, or 0. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that the writers don't actually think that 0, 1, or 2 is most of 4. And then the word others is used. Others as in plural, meaning more than one. At least 5 kingdoms were referenced in that sentence.
Most kingdoms, others.
And then in what I can only imagine is recompense for getting both the definition and number of kingdoms wrong, they decide to state the extremely obvious and say that nomadic villages tend to disappear and huntsman academies are where huntsmen are trained.
These institutions' sole purpose is to train the next generation of huntsmen.
Well, they also throw dances. Not a single word was spoken about culture, not a single accurate word was spoken about government, and not a single relevant word was spoken about military. Not a single new piece of information was presented unless you count the introduction of the concept of a council, but if these were called republics or democratic states instead of kingdoms, we wouldn't have needed to be told that they don't have a fucking clue what a king is.
I'm queen of the castle. I'm queen of the castle.
The third one is about Grimm, and they basically say that humans don't know shit about them.
Scientists perpetually find themselves with more questions than answers.
This is an offshoot video they made for the purpose of explaining the concept of Grimm to the audience, and the best they can do is we decided not to think about this shit, so just forget I ever brought it up.
With new creatures discovered every day.
Yeah, there are 6. I counted. 12 if you insist on counting the big and small versions of each type individually. Why is it even relevant that new types of Grimm are discovered every day if all they do is kill the same 6 types over and over again?
The Grimm exclusively attack humans and their creations.
Wait for it.
While occasional skirmishes between wildlife and Grimm have occurred.
Yep, they got the definition of the word exclusively wrong. What's next? They reveal that Grimm target their attacks based on negative emotions.
The creatures of Grimm are lured towards negative emotion.
Now we could die together.
Fuck you, Yang.
When villages are capable of defending against a wave of Grimm, their survival is not guaranteed,
Oh, this better be good.
as widespread panic will only lead to more attacks.
Wouldn't people be celebrating after they successfully fought off a wave of Grimm? Shouldn't something like that be absorbed into the culture? If something as easy as keeping your spirits up was a defense against the Grimm, they should have festivals every day. They should have the emotional Gestapo finding all the depressed and angry people and putting them in therapy gulags. I mean, this is a civilization that's evolved with the Grimm forever, right?
As long as humanity can recall walking the surface of Remnant, so do they remember this wicked force.
You'd think they would have developed some inherent cultural defense against feelings of negativity. You'd think something as serious as a faunus rights protest would have to be sorted out as quickly and diplomatically as possible so the Grimm never sensed this well of negativity. You'd think. But these guys obviously didn't. And that they're extremely difficult to hold in captivity.
Keeping them in captivity has proven to be an understandably difficult task.
Which makes me wonder why Edgar 12 over here wasn't being tested on. And
Killing is all that matters.
What if it attacks us?
Fret not, RWBY. Those Goliaths are not concerned with us.
oh. The moral of this story is that these guys are just really bad at delivering exposition, even when they completely divorce it from any sort of narrative flow. They had 3 whole videos devoted to dumping exposition and told us nothing that wasn't either completely irrelevant or extremely obvious. And at times I wonder why they dedicated their scheduled exposition dumps to telling us these 3 things instead of telling us what huntsmen do, what semblance is, and what faunus are. Because seriously, what do huntsmen do? They talk about huntsmen being
Defenders that will live and die to protect the lifestyle that they've become so accustomed to.
which raises a question. There seem to be a crapload of students at Beacon, and I'm not entirely sure what the population of Vale is. That might be an interesting piece of information to put in a video made to teach the audience about the kingdoms of Remnant, he said passive-aggressively. But there sure are a lot of them. Some huntsmen teach. We saw Glinda respond to a break-in. But other than that, we know nothing. Considering the amount of students Beacon seems to take in every year, there must be a metric fuck-ton of huntsmen in active duty at any given time. Do they really die that fast? Do they all get shipped outside the kingdom? Is it all just a Ponzi scheme? What's so important that they relegate apprehension of the bad guy who stole literally all of the dust to these 4 idiots? They can't even spare 1 or 2 huntsmen to stop this bumblefuck Torchwick, who seems to be able to outsmart every cop in Vale but consistently loses to a couple of teenagers? What's a semblance?
We're gonna get into that in the future.
Because in one of their earliest Q&As, they said that everyone has a unique semblance.
Everybody has a unique semblance.
Yes. Unique being the keyword, yes.
But if that's the case, how the fuck did Pura and Emerald use the same very specific term to describe Pura's semblance?
My semblance is polarity.
Her semblance is polarity.
How did they just assume it was magnetism instead of telekinesis? Why didn't they call it magnetism? Was this dumb luck? Was this dumb writers? Did they decide to scrap the whole unique semblance idea because they realized it was stupid? And finally, what are faunus? I mean, I shouldn't be allowed to complain about this because one of my favorite games is Record of Agristor, and that has Nelicum, which basically are faunus. But I'd still like to know, where did they come from? Can they crossbreed?
Cue the Barry White. Can humans and faunus interbreed?
Ooh. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we're not.
Totally. Yeah, love is love.
Why aren't they homogenized yet? I mean, this isn't like Elder Scrolls, where you have the Khajiit and the Argonians, and that's it. You got all sorts of them. You have cats, monkeys, rabbits, things with tusks, things with horns. What I'm assuming is a bat faunus. What I'm assuming is a horse faunus. Why does Blake have 4 ears? Does that mean Sun has 2 spines?